And
All right, we're live. Well, jinx.
Hey, what's up? How's it going, Chris?
Good. How are you, Wythe?
Good. It is much cooler. And it's almost
thank
Gen
God.
Con book block.
I know. Yeah. Are you excited? You're going this year.
I'm going. I've never been. I've been to other cons, but not in a while, and never sort of with Stillfleet officially. So yeah, this will be, that's something we can talk about on the pod. I don't think we're going to talk about it today, but maybe we'll do a debrief later.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. Kind of find out what Aaron is also coming from our team, what he and I sort of figure out this year, and hopefully next year we'll go sort of in force with a lot of books. This year is more just really like getting to know people, learning, playing some games. We having not been to Gen Con, and given it's so big in this industry, feels like we just had to like try, see what's out there.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm super excited for y'all, and I'm excited to hear what you come back with, what experiences you have.
Yeah, probably like a couple $100 in books I can't afford, but hopefully some good connections beyond that. Yeah,
I feel like that's an integral part of any convention experience. It's just like you gotta set aside a little money. You got to bring back some stuff you don't really need, but that it's an economy of desire more than anything else.
And there's a gift economy aspect. So we are bringing some books, which like to sell, but I think realistically we're going to do a lot of trading. That's my hope, is to meet cool people and be like, yeah, you know what? If you think our game looks cool, we think your game looks cool. Let's trade. Let's kind of be in touch.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, it's a festival, right? And so for any small industry, if you're a creator, to find the connections, the human connections, some of which you can do online, but it's nice to be in person sometimes. So yeah, we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, today I think we thought we would kick off what is probably going to be the first of many, actual play moments where we don't necessarily play through a whole game, but the Why We Roll team, you and I, try out different things, different moments within different games, kind of kick the tires on different mechanics. And obviously we thought we'd start with their own games. So next time I will be playing Danse Macabre for the first time, your game. Yeah. And this time, I think you're playing Stillfleet for the first time. Is that correct?
This is the first time I'll be playing Stillfleet. Yeah, I'm a newbie void miner, so I'm relatively familiar with, I think, some of the base mechanics. But there's one of the strengths of Stillfleet is that there is a lot going on, and it all feeds into itself. It all creates a really tight, fun narrative universe that you and the team have put a lot of time into, and that really shows in the rules. But it also means that I haven't had time to read everything. So I'm in your very capable hands.
Yeah, and that's a little by design, that we don't expect people to read all those pages before playing. In the same way, I don't think many of us read all of the materials for D&D or other similar games back in the day before we dove in.
Absolutely.
And sometimes the reading is fun on its own, and so there's a Venn diagram, I think, of like the reading of RPG manuals, the playing without really any sense of what the hell is going on, and that sweet spot. So thanks for diving in, really.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Cool. Well, so I heard that you have a void miner. You've created a character, which in this game are called void miners, and they work for the worshipful company of Stillfleeters, mining space for ancient architect that these kind of early modern humans who found this alien space station, these time-space gates to the space station, that then connects to so many other places. They're basically their version of treasure, right? Is ancient technology.
Mm-hmm.
So who is your void miner? Can you give us this sort of like the camera, turns in the dark halls of this alien space station, and you are standing there, maybe like ordering a smoothie made of crickets and engineered sugar beets.
Yeah, I don't actually know what this species eats, because they are not quite organic from what I can tell. But we'll do the full actual play thing. The camera pans over to the right, and you see standing in the hallway a 6 foot tall, dual-headed being with a cerulean blue complexion, 2 different expressions on each one of their Janus faces. You see before you Svarm the Morgul. Svarm is a Morgul, or Mournfolk, as many fleeters call them. I guess that's the vernacular, the colloquial term for them. not quite organic, not quite machine. Looks like a kind of androgyne mix up of what various genders. I'm not really exactly sure yet, but yes, Farm is a is it Razi?
Sure.
Razzie. I feel like Rozzy has more weight to it, so I'm gonna go with that.
I've been saying it, but it's a lot of it's purely made up, or like, yeah. So
yeah,
whatever sounds great.
But yes, Farm is a Rozzy for the Co. They are an exoplanetary scout, and more specifically, they work as a translator. So they do scouting work as well as kind of linguistic work for the Co. So new planets or new spheres that have been discovered where there might be an extant population. Farm is usually one of the first through the gate, trying to break down language barriers and figuring out how to communicate and increase trade with the locals. They're wearing a hauberk made of bend, which covers most of their body, but you can see their very nice thin blue legs sticking out of the bottom. And they have on them pretty simple weaponry. On their left hip, they're carrying a super ceramic dagger. I don't know if super ceramic's a thing. It's from a book I'm reading, so I went with it. As well as a large caliber pistol on their right hip. That's what you see. That's Farm.
Great. I love it. And that actually matches really well with the vague idea I had in mind. So I think it's kind of perfect that you're playing a Morgul Razi. So
sweet.
Yeah, and I think to your point, actually, yeah, if you're made of blue nanites, kind of ropes of nanites woven into the form of two elfin people smooshed together with the two heads still separate. You probably don't eat food per se. You might like ingest things, and you need to rest because everyone has to rest in some form, or else you'd maybe not feel so good mentally, if not also physically. But yeah, you probably metabolize something to power your body. So whatever that is, maybe you weren't ordering a smoothie, but
maybe it's a nanite juice. It's like fresh nanites to refresh the worn out ones in the system.
Yeah, it's battery acid and probably crickets. This stuff gets cut, right? It's not pure good stuff. Great. Well, you realize that it is time to meet with your refactor. You have a job offer. So whatever your training, your previous experiences, for whatever reason, you decided to work for this company and actually take the job of Void Miner, because you could, continue to be a kind of monk-like figure who just sort of meditates on all the problems that led to the Civil War back when your people were first created, and then melded, one to the next to kind of remind them to mourn forever, to never be atomized individuals who would sort of hate someone else. Whatever happened to lead you down this path, you're like, maybe you're bored, maybe you want something, you're taking a job.
Yeah, I've got a reason, actually. I got a little backstory based on my kin. Actually, my major kin is a provincial governor, so I kind of thought it would be cool if they were maybe not a governor. I'm not sure exactly what the socio-political structure of Mosstown looks like, but like a higher up in Mosstown, and it was actually their decision to send us. I'm going to speak in kind of like Venom, plural third person, but to send us to work for the Co in order to, I don't know, make political connections or something along those lines.
Great. So sort of on behalf of all the other mourners down there in the depths of this alien space station, you are kind of connecting with the company. And yeah, that makes sense. So if you're someone who has spent time, I mean, I guess all Mournfolk at some point we're not on Spindle, but maybe you feel more connected. You haven't lost those memories, of being on a terrestrial body and scouting around alien locations. And if you enjoy the sort of translation and the socializing, and you're not too sort of anxious about that, you're sent up, you're trained or whatever. You fill out some paperwork with Alterity, the branch of the Basilicon that takes in aliens. and you are granted the status of void miner. Your rank is, Stillfleet or minima minus class F or whatever. You're nobody, and this is your first big job. So there is a refactor in the afdelling of the minor provinces. So the department in charge of all of these smaller worlds where the company doesn't really have complete hold. They have sort of complete control, more or less, through trade deals at least, of the good resources on 8 big Goldilocks worlds. But there are many, many other ones that they found because this alien space station Spindle that the company occupies has all of these Malkovich tunnel, these long funnel connections that if you open them just right using some kind of complicated quantum math MacGuffery, you are able to connect time and space, and you end up somewhere else. And they almost all lead to habitable worlds or habitable major ships, left by dead civilizations. So the company's found a lot of them, but the minor provinces are ones that don't have, permanent deals set up. So this branch of the company is called the afdelling of the void. So the void just symbolizing all of the possibility out there. And they mostly worry about the minor provinces. So there's a few dozen planets that they definitely want to develop more relationships with. However, the job you are being sent on is a little bit weird. So you've been asked to see someone very specifically, and that person is named Refactor Jantheo. She's a youngish woman to be a refactor, so to be an officer in the company who assigns jobs. She has all the face tattoos of someone born to the directorate, so to the ruling class, more or less, on Spindle. And she's got short cropped hair and wears a kind of gray suit that is common. She's sort of like dressing in a fancy way that looks like she has a lot of power, but she's relatively low level. She has a nice small real wooden desk. Actual wood is very rare on Spindle. Most things are grown out of essentially planks of mushroom root, mycelium. So it's everything sort of like a gray fibrous. It's like gray plywood, everything.
Yeah.
And most of the walls are just left bare, just the impenetrable black stone of the station, none of which is also rectilinear. So the floors are all false, sort of plywood. And then there's these walls that are all just kind of curved black stone. People
I'm imagining the mycelium furniture as being like IKEA in space kind of thing.
That's exactly how. Yeah. And then if you're rich, right, you might have stuff from Terra or the provinces. So you have little wooden knickknacks and old metal pieces and whatnot. So Jantheo has you come in to her office in the Basilicon, the area of room blobs on Spindle where the refactors assign jobs, contracts. And there's no doors. Most rooms don't have doors, but they do have beaded curtains that are pretty heavy and sort of muffle sound. There's not actually anywhere to sit except for her chair. So she sort of doesn't gesture. But she does ask, your name, just sort of verify who you are. And then confirms, which seems unnecessary, but there's a lot of bureaucracy, that you are indeed a Morgul. You are a two sapphire elves melded together into a new single consciousness.
Yeah. Svarm stands just creepily stock still in front of her desk, and when asked to prove that they are a Morgul, they actually begin the process of defusing. So splitting both of their kind of Janus faces, their personhood into 2 different beings, which I'm happy to burn some grit or roll for or whatever. But yeah, they begin the process of defusing in order to prove their heritage, as ropes of nanites kind of untangle each other.
Right. No, we'll let you do this for free, given you're still on Spindle, and maybe you'll want to sort of have refused. So maybe you do a lot of it, but you don't completely separate if you're just sort of showing off. Yeah.
It's like down to the navel. It's like this kind of kind of
so you almost unzip and fall over, but then your legs are still standing. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So she doesn't really react. She sort of nods and checks a box on a form. Most of the paper is made of gray green sort of algae. So it's like mint green, gray, sort of like a unfinished feeling paper. that the dot matrix printers in the archive sort of work on.
Nice.
So she says, all right, well, thanks for that. I'm Refactor Jantheo, and this is a bit of a rush and a bit of a secret mission. So all I can say is that if you take the job, it will be well worth your pay. We'll pay you the base rate of 25 Void Guilders, plus an emergency rush rate bonus of 100 Void Guilders, and that's it. It's a very simple exfiltration job. You must find someone and bring them back to report to us.
Okay, yeah. Svarm's 4 eyes blink slowly, and they say, "These terms are acceptable to us."
Excellent. And the reason why we actually asked for a Morgul is that this job is a little sensitive. Someone has gone missing from my Afdeling, but on the major province of Giju, which is where the Morn folk, your people, are from traditionally. So this is a Goldilocks world that is a little cooler than most of the other terraformed planets that have been found, and it is covered in great forests of moss for the most part. So there's sort of very low, thick moss kind of everywhere. And this is where the Sapphire Elf civilization arose, and most of the Sapphire Elves obliterated each other, and those who were left mostly fused into the Morgul and then left the planet forever, sort of mourning that war and sort of the idea of state violence in general. Some of the Sapphire Elves stayed behind. So the company has held this planet. They've been the only humans there for hundreds of years now. But there are Sapphire Elves there. They also recently discovered that a lot of the planet is inhabited by very large, what basically are large frogs that are sapient. And that they had already begun sort of despoiling the planet of much of its natural bounty when thousands and thousands of basically intelligent frogs started sabotaging all of their operations in the south. So there's kind of 3 bands. There's sort of Sapphire Elves, humans, and then the Molruk, the sort of frog people.
Molruk,
so,
that's a good name.
Oh, thanks. So that is the reason you're being sent on this job. Is there someone missing? One of her bosses is missing, but she needs someone who kind of could maybe, both be okay in the wild, and maybe if you run into a Sapphire Elf, they won't just cut your head off because you're, a technology user, representative of a state or corporation, things they don't like.
Yeah.
So that's it's very simple. So why don't I'm going to share you actually a map of this planet that I'm describing.
Oh, nice.
So this is inhabited Giju. And the Stiffworks, the sole time-space gate, is in the depths of the largely uninhabited north region called the Middle Moss. The people there just call it the Gate. It is technically the Hedera Gate. And over here is where the remaining Sapphire Elves live. And down here is where the company's essentially colony is, right? 3 cities that it's founded and maintained, and numerous farms and outposts. And then as you go further south, the Molruks, it turns out, inhabit much of the rest of this continent. Gotcha. So you would be coming through the Hedera Gate, and your job is to find Jantheo's missing boss, who has gone on some sort of expedition you are not allowed to know anything about, to the Elf Crypt, to the mountains of the Sapphire Elves, which is very dangerous. Humans don't go there. The Sapphire Elves generally just try to kill you if you seem like you are still part of a civilization, essentially. The ones who stayed behind. So
doing really well to avoid any violence there.
Yeah. So that is the job's pretty simple. Go to the Elf Crypt, get this person, and bring them back. You actually don't have to go south into the civilized parts of Giju really at all. Civilized by company standards, humans and Waitons, giant bugs, in cities, farming and growing stuff and doing artisanal activities and mining and whatnot. So this would all be wild. And there is, there's a valley here, there's a valley here, there's some hills. You can see the map is pretty much this map, right? She probably hands you this map, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So does that sound amenable, Svarm?
Yes, as previously stated, these conditions are acceptable to us. We shall endeavor to do our best.
Very well.
What? Who is the target, and how may we identify them?
The target's name is Subdirector Tartison, and Tartison is getting older. They are a gelasti. They are a short, vaguely salamanderoid form, single-celled organism. So roughly the size of a human teen, sort of made of pink jelly, pink jello, but has a roughly sort of salamander-like head with sort of frilly things coming off of it, which are thought to be a mix of sensory organs and sex organs, but they look kind of like the gills of an axolotl. And Tartison is all she will say is that they are a subdirector. They're high up in the Afdeling of the Void, and this is secret. So don't tell anyone else in the company that they went to Giju and went over to Sapphire Elf territory. It could cause a bit of a stir.
Okay. Yeah. Again, Svarm, four eyes slowly blink, and they say, "Not many Gelasti make their way to Giju. This should not be difficult to locate them."
Yes, they will stand out quite a bit in the drier hills of the Sapphire Elves, and they should probably want your help. They are not known to be much of a fighter or explorer. They're a bureaucrat and a scientist, I would say. They trained as a banshee, so an engineer, and then quickly rose up through the ranks, etc., etc. But yes, they may very well require some sort of aid in terms of perhaps they're wounded, perhaps they're trapped physically. But if you can bring them back to the gate, they, as a banshee, should be able to open it for you. So this is a solo operator venture as far as we are concerned. Again, just to keep the number of voices in the metaphorical room few.
We understand. Is there any indication where the subdirector has gone?
All we know is that they have signaled a distress beacon using a tachyon lantern in their person, which is more or less gives no information other than we know the planet they're on, roughly the region. So we know they're somewhere in the south part of the Elf Crypts near the Palt Moss. So not too far, I would say directly west of the Hedera Gate. And we do not know exactly why they went, but if I know Tartison, which I cannot affirm or deny, but she there's a pregnant pause, so implying she knows this person quite well. They are after some specific architect, some ancient technology, presumably nanites driven, probably of the Sapphire Elves, and probably for good reason. They have nothing but the best interest of the myriad peoples organized by the Worshipful Company of Stillfleeters at heart, if they had a heart. I mean, they're a single-celled organism, so they have a heart-equivalent organelle that helps with the transmission of things through their cytoplasm. But you understand.
Svarm puts one of their hands up and is like, "We understand. Thank you."
Yes, I imagine you also don't have a heart. You transport electrons. I don't really understand physiology that well. Again, I'm a bureaucrat. So yes, if you do that, it's a bit of a rush. 125 Void Guilders. Don't tell anyone. And let's just, whatever Tartison was up to, just keep that a bit hushed. Come right back here. Tell no one but me. And time is of the essence. As you know, the Stiffworks are all synced. And the time on a Goldilocks world passes basically the same. They're all roughly the size of Terra, and Spindle is meant to experience the same pseudogravity. And as far as we know, time passes the same here. So every moment that you wait is a moment that they might not be alive. I'm sure they will appreciate it. They might even give you some sort of personal bonus. I cannot speak to that. The Afdeling of the Void makes no claims as to Subdirector Tartison's personal exchequery and their ability to, remunerate you beyond what we've agreed to here. Any questions? And I will say, Chris, you could also roll to see if she's lying or hiding anything from you, or whatever.
Yeah, I think Farm, this is their first mission. They want to make a good impression, but I will say their Tiloi is knowledge. So there's this kind of itching in the back of their quad non-brains, or double non-brains, that does drive them to I don't know, just to do a little bit of investigating. So yeah, I think Svarm is going to try to use just their willpower to perceive any signs of lying. And they have worked as a translator. They've worked with a bunch of different people. They're not the most charismatic being in the universe, but they can read people relatively well. So just looking for any sign, any shift, any kind of indication that she is hiding something from us.
Yeah, excellent. Roll will to perceive. So a standard check in Stillfleet, you want to get a 6 or higher. Generally indicates a success. The difficulty can go up. Let's just say this is a 6 or higher kind of a roll.
All right, great. So yeah, my will is D12, which is what I assigned to it. And I forget which thing I have. I think, so I chose Sensor Stack for one of my species powers, which I think gives me +2 to perception and will rolls. So we'll do a little roll. So I rolled a 7 +2, so I got a 9.
Great. Okay, so 9 would be like the next tier of success generally. So most rolls are going to go maybe like 6, 7 is like kind of hard, 9 is like really good success, and then 12 and up would be really hard for a normal person to achieve. If everyone running around who's like a kid is like D6s, then how would they even get to D12? They'd have to, if you think through the logic of the game, burn a bunch of grit to even be able to get there. So 9 is a great success. So yeah, I mean, you get the sense the thing she's hiding is that whatever Tardison is up to was like highly like many factions within the company would find it like illegal and problematic, and that's kind of the thing she's trying to kind of glide by is just like, yeah, get this person, bring them back, don't worry about what they were doing or why, and definitely don't tell the Afdeling that actually is in charge of managing this planet, because this is they fucked up, right?
Yeah.
And since you got a 9, I guess you also get the sense that she does have a close working relationship. I mean, this is like her boss, whom she seems to like. So you don't get the sense Tardison is like secretly an assassin there to like, blow up a village or something. You get the sense Tardison is some sort of, maybe like greedy middle bureaucrat who is after some specific thing. So in a sense, she's telling you the truth there. She just is not trying to divulge, specifics at this point.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I mean, sensing that, and then also having an understanding of Giju and the kind of political situation there, Svarm kind of chooses not to say anything, and instead just nods and says, "We will make haste to find Tardison as quickly as possible." And with that, kind of lithely turns on their heel and exits the room, pushing aside their sweet beaded curtain, which I'm assuming clacks softly.
Yeah, it's almost like a pool foam. It's like but like a little heavier, stickier. Like, so it doesn't really make any noise. It's meant to muffle sound.
Gotcha.
So it's like an office, but building a door that you can't drill into the stone. So building anything on spindle means you have to build out like a cage first of your own material to then anchor stuff to. So a lot of people there's like a bare cage of like, mycelial plywood, and then you can hang stuff off it or whatever.
Yeah, that's cool.
We have a very specific, you're absolutely right. The design aesthetic, when we talk about like this alien space station, is like very, very alien, but also the crappiest dorm room kind of a vibe. But it's, it's this whole culture. It's now 300 years of these people running this huge organization this way. So that's all they know.
Yeah. Well, it's also, you're highlighting efficiency, not aesthetics, right? So it's like, why would they give a crap about their gray mushroom IKEA furniture? Like, of course it's going to be as simple to build and maintain as possible. That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also the non-choices of non-places, is we brought up Jay last week, that idea that like they're living in the airport, like these are the people who chose to do that in this future version of kind of restarted civilization on Earth. These are the people who like found the dopest airport and were like, this is our capital.
This is it.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's skip the part where you like get a company banshee to take you to the Stiffworks.
Yeah.
And you go through the Stiffworks. I think you're just now in the middle of the Middle Moss on Giju, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
We'll do a super cut.
Yeah, we do a big cut, and you may other people might be nauseated by that experience of crawling down this tightening funnel of black stone toward nothing, toward just complete darkness, and then suddenly you're tipping out, and there's a soul strength, star above you, a sun, and the physics is completely different just by dint of you were crawling and now like you're standing in midair or whatever, and there's this huge organic looking malachite or even darker green stone structure that looks vaguely like a wasp in the middle of an explosion or a sort of orchid, and it is covered over with not true ivy but things that function like ivy, so different kinds of climbing semi-vascular plants, so like weird moss with kind of club mosses and mosses that kind of go up. And you are in a forest, but the forest is quite low, so you can see around. This is kind of a bigger structure. This dark green thing you are now standing in the middle of. And you were alone. So the Banshee just opened it on Spindle. You crawled through. You're here. And I am actually going to roll to see what time of day it is. So
sure,
bear with me. It is actually very early in the morning. So let's say it's, Giju Sol is just peeking over the horizon.
Very nice. Yeah, well, I mean, I have a sense of which direction to go, and I definitely like to avoid going to the south towards the Keating Swale. Yeah, I think Svarm is just gonna head as directly west as they can through the Middle Moss. I'm not sure if there's any pathways or roadworks or anything like that that they can take. But I guess, yeah, just doing their best to kind of navigate the Middle Moss with whatever knowledge that they have left over from having once lived on Giju. In the, I guess, so are the Sapphire Elves, are they like in the Sapphire Fens or?
Yeah, like this whole area is where the remains of the civilization that ended up producing your people is. There are still people left who basically subscribe to a different philosophy. So at the end of the Civil War, who knows? Let's say this was like thousands of years or like 1,000 years ago, right?
Yeah.
A bunch of nanite people, sort of self-organized emergent technology, cyber folks. Maybe they were once humanoid because you have a sort of humanoid shape, but who knows? At this point, your body is purely, technical. Most were obliterated. Those who stayed behind mostly adhered to a religion where they all sort of twinned up. And now they're like you would produce more twin people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But those who stayed behind would look like you, but just one. So the Sapphire Elves are sort of the same, but only one. And the ones who stayed behind all adhere to a specific philosophy called Eliminimilim Sivariach, which is, these are intentionally alien sounding, but essentially vitalism and nihilism. So the idea that everything is kind of alive, and certain kinds of emergent or organization are really bad because they tend toward death. So they're nihilistic in that they just, without even questioning it, like they stay behind to wipe out future civilizations that might arise.
Gotcha.
So it's possible that a given Sapphire Elf might not be like kind of a dangerous post-apocalyptic crazy person, but most of them seem to be. So the humans have just kind of not tried to mine them their hills, and have just sort of proceeded to grow. Humans and Waitons, right? The other major species in Stillfleet are these 7-foot tall spiked cricket-like people, the Waita. And they tend to live, further south for that reason. The Sapphire Elves tend to not. There's so few of them. They don't really leave their area generally.
Gotcha. Yeah,
so you would know you'd know which way to go based on the sun. So whichever horizon, you would know like, okay, that way is west, Giju west. And you would know the major dangers in the Middle Moss are random things. So a lot of the plants have not really evolved, but because of all the stray nanites they're like sort of alive in the way an animal is like sentient and wants stuff. But if you can imagine like a plant that's got like blue pixie dust that gives it the ability to like move a lot and compute kind of like where prey might be. So there's like a lot of basically gorilla-like carnivorous plant shambles running around here.
Very cool. Yeah.
There is one road.
Predatory plants.
Yeah, yeah. And sorry, I'm just trying to give you the background. Like your character would know all this.
Yeah, no, this is all good stuff.
Cool. There is a road, but the road goes south into the Keening Swale where the humans and the Waitons are farming and mining. So there is no road west because they quickly found anyone who went west tended to get their head chopped off or blown off by a sapphire elf, so they just stopped trying to go west. So you know which way to go, but it is just trackless forest. And when I say forest, I mean it is like your head height of just like dense, fluffy like moss of different kinds. And imagine just some world where like plants never really went up. So it is just enough where like you'd struggle to like really see everything, but it is really weird in that you're not like in a tall forest, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Okay. Maybe in that case, yeah. So I think Storm is going to try to make their way west just to do things as quickly as possible, even if they do have to kind of cut through this forested area. I would like to attempt to use a class power track to see if I can pick up any indication of where the subdirector may have turned off or which direction they may have gone before really setting out.
Perfect. That's your marquee power is the Razi, the scout. So you can track anything. You just burn grit and you make a reason check. So this is your Sherlock Holmesing of all the clues. And the difficulty and the amount of grit are dependent on how hard it would be, basically. So it's 3 grit for an easy target where there are already clues narratively established and you're just trying to like follow them. It's 5 grit for a difficult target, meaning the clues don't exist and or there's clues, but the person's like actively trying to like hide, like erase their trail or whatever. And 7 for near impossible. Like logically they're in the same area, but there's just no way you would know.
Right.
I think we'll go with 5 because while there aren't clues per se, like you know from the beacon the vague area you're supposed to go to, and you maybe have been here, and you definitely have been here at some point, even if it was a while ago now, if you've been mostly living on Spindle. So if you make the reason check, it is a standard reason check, so actually it's a 6 or higher, then you succeed. If you fail, you still have to burn the 5 grit, but you can try again the next day. So it's basically once per day you can try to track a specific thing based on, again, like the detectiving you've done, right? So we don't have to role play through all that. If you want to add anything specific you're doing, like that might factor in some way, but usually people are just like, I'm gonna try to find the answer.
Yeah, I will say something that I do like, which I think is kind of a layout thing in the book. A lot of the powers, whether it's class or species specific, it's really clearly demarcated. Like you have your standard and then /day, where it's like you can do this once per day, you can do this hourly. That's very clear, which is I think a nice design choice to have that be up front, like right next to the name.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it's like I kind of understood that almost implicitly while putting together my character, even though I've never played the game. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, and I think we're building on a lot of other game tropes that appear in other games, but it is reorganized enough where, like, I think it looks different enough where someone's gonna be like, oh wow, I don't know how to read this, but I think there should be an unconscious part of your brain if you play a lot of RPGs where you're like, oh okay, I get that, right?
For sure, yeah, and it doesn't have to be like a separate text line. Like I'm thinking about a lot of games that I have played where it's like it'll have the name of the thing and then it's a separate text line that you either have to search for or like do a little bit of digging. But this is just like it's right there. So even if you don't fully understand the power, you at least have a sense of its temporal limitations, which I think is nice.
Yeah, thanks. Well, all right. So Svarm is going to track.
So Yeah, so they're checking the ground around the Hedera gate, looking for any, I don't know, like pink goo or jelly or salamander like tracks that might be on the ground, which would indicate a direction that they're going.
Sure.
Ooh, woof. Okay, yeah. So I rolled a 2 for reason.
Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you are in an area that's like 100 kilometers of open, just like forest between you and the valley. Um,
yeah.
they came through here a while ago, and thus any tracks, there are shambling mounds of moss, and maybe even some sessile, normal-ish alien moss that have grown over, metabolized those things. This is a hungry world, just full of, xenoplanta, and so you find squat diddly, to use the scientific term, and you are basically like not that far from the gate after like however many minutes you spend searching, and you have no real idea, but it's still early morning. You haven't spent a bunch of time on this, so
Sure. Yeah. Also, really quickly, I just want to point out that we have some people in our chat. We have Jen De La Vega, J De La Vegs, and Falling in Larb. Is that gay?
that is gay. Yeah.
Nice. All right, we got partner support here.
Woo
Very
woo.
sweet. Thanks for watching, y'all.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Very cute.
So all right, so you do you want to kind of wander on San Clues?
Yeah, I think San Clues, based on everything that we've already been told, yeah, we're gonna head west to the Doom Path and the Palt Moss
Okay,
beyond. So yeah, we'll trek as carefully as possible through the wilds here.
great. So we're going to do a standard encounter roll, which I often like to do with just a d6, where 1 is
Cool.
really bad, a 2 is bad, 3 and a 4 are like atmospheric weirdness, and a 5 and a 6 are like good, which could just be, things don't take as long, etc. So we can also roll. There's actually a table in the book for weather. So why don't we do that? It's an Earth-like
Yeah,
world, probably wetter than Terra.
I would
In that
imagine.
there's
Yeah,
plants everywhere. So it's probably rainy a lot. So let's
a
do
lot
both
of
of these.
a lot of moss and lichen. I could imagine that it gets pretty moist.
Yeah. So that's a d6 roll for encounter and a d20 roll for the weather conditions, which you can roll both those if you like and tell me.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So D6 for encounter. Got a 4 for encounter.
Okay.
And then our weather conditions for D20, I rolled an 8.
Great. It is raining steadily the whole day. So
Nice.
it is not too stormy. It's not dangerous. It is just like let's say it wasn't raining. Maybe it's been raining on and off. So like when you arrive, it's not raining that moment, but there's clouds streaked overhead, and that is one reason that the trail has been erased. So people could have come through the Hedera Gate like yesterday, and it would be very hard to like know at this point.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. All washed
Um,
away.
yeah. So as you walk, you notice lots of little living things here and there, and you pause and probably do some smart, blending in, hiding. I'm just picturing the Homer Simpson like walk backwards into the bushes.
Backward into the bush.
It's like that environment, it's like these big breaks of just hedges full of moss, and you can kind of walk through them in a weird way. So it's like an ecosystem that does not exist. I'm trying to imagine the logic of, but you know all about it. You're from here, so you don't have any dangers jump out. You do see things that are alive, but they're the equivalent on this ecosystem of like parrots and like ground squirrels. But again, they're all motile plants, and they're motile because of essentially technological pollution from 1,000 years ago from the people that ended up creating the Morgul, right? So there's nanites that have made these plants like run around and skitter and like capture whatever resource and hoard it like a squirrel. So I don't know. Yeah, go for it.
I have a question. So another power that I have as a Morgul is Tap Right In, which does allow you to communicate with technology, which can either be like archaeotech, like I think mechanically it allows you to use archaeotech, but also to like actually speak. Would it be possible to like have any kind of cogent conversation with any of these creatures, or at least to get like an impression of what they've seen recently?
Yeah, I mean I think that's a stretch for the power, but I think it's interesting. So yeah, I'll allow it, and that it's
All
kind of
right,
fun. I was
cool.
gonna ask you to if you want to do any world building, like tell me like what is the Middle Moss like, because a lot of this
Oh
has not
yeah,
been thought through too much on my part, even if it seems like I'm pretty obsessed with these speculative ecosystems. But yeah, maybe both. So yes,
sure.
if you use the power, please also tell me, kind of basically what it does. So if you burn, let's say the complexity, I mean, it's a living thing. So it's at least 3. So let's say if you burn 6 grit and kind of capture, you reach out and grab one of those kind of little ground squirrel, like sort of a headless squirrel with like a flatter tail, almost like a cactus leaf.
Yeah, yeah.
And the body is just like this dense kind of wiry moss kind of thing. And it's got little, not even claws, they're still sort of soft, but harder bits of sort of rolled up kind of proto leaves, if that makes sense.
hmm Yeah, I'm almost imagining like fiddlehead ferns that kind of like extend to like like a sloth's claws kind of, but it's like fern heads that kind of like come out and grab things rapidly.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, yeah, and maybe it captures little bugs or other little
Yeah.
plants. Yeah, that's great.
Um, yeah. Okay. So yeah, we'll burn some grit here. Let's see. I gotta track my grit that I'm
So
burning.
you
There's my
burnt 5
pencil.
grit to track, and this is another
Yes.
6. So you're down 11 on the day. You can rest and regain some grit.
Ooh.
Just letting you know, that's 11
Yeah.
off the top.
All right. So, and just for for the sake of transparency around mechanics, I started with 22 grit. For Razi, you combine reason and will to get your grit score. So D10 reason, D12 will, 22 total, and I have 14 health. So not the hardiest, but doing okay, I think. Okay, yeah. So we burn the grit there, and let's see. So yeah, tap right in. Uses for run around, lets you use things that you can't even begin to understand or to communicate. So I guess kind of in one of my languages, I believe, is like Elf Machina, which I'm assuming there's some at least like impressionistic form of Elf Machina that is residing within these plant creatures if they have the same kind of like nanite composition that I have. Not really like trying to use words or anything like that, but more of just like forcing an impression, trying to kind of get across the idea of the Gelasti, the person that I'm looking for, and just trying to see if there's any recognition that this creature might have.
Great. I love that. So I think the way this works, it's like the nanites are just doing their thing. They're groups of like probably millions of nanites, but I mean they would look like just dust, like a piece of dust,
Yeah.
which are stable excitons. They're states of electrons and holes where electrons should go, which kind of create various things in physics, which could, in this, with enough complexity, it sort of has intelligence, but it's left over from like being in a person, right? A sapphire elf, or maybe like a pet, even like a sapphire elf
Oh
equivalent of
yeah.
a dog, like 1,000 years ago. So this ground squirrel species is now like different groups of these parts of other consciousnesses, but just parts of them that are really reduced. Hence, it acts like a squirrel, right? It's pretty dumb. But to your point,
Yeah.
it senses the world around it. It has an awareness of itself in an environment, right? An Umwelt. So, you ask it a question, it must have some sense of like what it has seen in its little territory on the edge of the Middle Moss, moving toward the valley and Sapphire Elf territory. So I will give you a 1 in 6 chance. If you roll a d6 and get a 6, this ground squirrel randomly saw subdirector Tardison, and if you don't, then you get a sense of what it did for the last day in very
Great.
briefly.
I love it
But
either way.
yeah.
I also want to just point out for everybody, I am actually rolling dice for this.
Oh yeah.
I think I'm a tabletop Luddite in some ways. Like I like rolling dice. I design for rolling dice, which is we've talked a little bit about that. Anyway, just wanted to put that.
Yeah. No, same. I got the dice and
Fantastic.
rolling here.
I love it. All right, D6. Let's see. No whammies. I got a 4.
All right. It had an interesting day as far as kind of headless, fern-handed ground squirrels made of moss go, but it did not see a Gelasti in a spacesuit with some architect.
Cool.
And it probably doesn't remember much else. I don't know how far back its memories extend, so it's probably just freaking out in your hands now.
Yeah, I'm imagining it's like goldfish level as far as static memory goes or long term memory goes. It's just like I don't know.
It probably knows where it, like, let's say it eats like this sweet part of a fruit, of like a
Yeah,
strawberry like fruit, and it knows where like a lot of those are. And so it has a
right.
very specific kind of intelligence, but it has really no idea what you're talking about when your electrons, flow into it and try to just like tell me what I want to know. It's a squirrel.
But I do know now where to find plenty of moss fruit, which is dope.
Right.
For what it's worth. Maybe I can report that back to the co, and they can start a new farm, like ag venture in the middle moss.
Just like collecting small amounts of delicious fruit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, do you want to venture out? So this is taken, kind of all day to like travel that far safely. You are
Sure.
now on the edge of the forest, and the ground slopes in such a way, and it changes like geologically a bit, like what it is. So the moss doesn't prefer to grow there, and it's basically kind of grassy. And maybe even is still moss or like licheny, but it's the equivalent of a grassland. It's just open,
Sure.
and it is lower, and you can kind of see beyond. It rises up again, and you have this kind of forest, and you can see beyond now the mountains. So they're distant, but they're pretty high mountains actually,
Okay.
directly west.
Yeah. I think if there's still light of day, we'll keep heading west towards the maybe skirting south of the Palt Moss, actually, to kind of like go just above the Twice Dead Hills to get to the Elf Crypt, because I remember she said that he was in the south part of the Elf Crypt, so rather avoid more unnecessary trekking through forest if possible.
Okay. So let's say it's late afternoon, and you're probably physically a bit tired from early morning, just like walking through the woods, like carefully swimming through the moss, you're gonna make another encounter check. And if you want, this would be something I would encourage players to tell me their void miners are doing. You could just roll will to perceive, even like as you go, if anything looks particularly interesting or scary, or if you want to look for something specific, you could roll will, or if you think there's a way your character could like reasonably find it logically, you could roll reason. So yeah, is there anything you want to do besides kind of just head, south west, up a bit, across the dune path and up where this kind of grassy licheny land rises a bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, I think just trying to keep all four eyes out for any sign of the subdirector, whether it's whether it's tracks or gelasti goo or ooze, or even if it's like signs of archaeotech or I don't know what gelastis eat necessarily, but I'm assuming there might be some kind of like packaging left over from rations, like co-rations and things like that. I think generally keeping both heads on a swivel, because also wanting to avoid being seen by any other void miners or co-employees to the south as well. So kind of, double trouble as far as that goes. But just, moving slowly, carefully, keeping an eye out for any kind of track or sign as far as that goes.
Great. Then roll will to perceive as you wander, and then we'll do the encounter check after. So let's see, if you find anything useful, give you that first.
Cool. All right. So we got a 10 for our will check. And then for encounter, we rolled a 3.
Great. Then I'll say, instead of like signs of an encounter, so you find something first before it, they would perceive you. So as you round the Palt Moss, so to your right, the land actually slopes down, so it's higher up than in the Doom Path, but it's lower down than the hills or the mountains. Mm-hmm. And the Palt Moss is actually kind of a unique ecosystem with some different mosses, which we'll just say are a little more colorful. So they're a little less of the exact same as the middle moss of the related. And above you, the ground is just kind of drier, and you can see up into the hills. You might even see at some points cairns, like stones left by the Sapphire Elves, that kind of worn like they're meant to just sort of be signs to like obliterate yourself. Like just imagining like really like metal album art, like glyphs kind of made out of just rock stacked over hundreds of years. So you see some eerie crap and you would know to sort of ignore it. But as you round down, with the pulp moss kind of on one side, and you can see in the distance the edge of the darker region, the settlers call the black moss on the other, that in front of you, let's say 50 meters down into the pulp moss is an encampment, and you see signs of boots, but they're very differently shaped boots. But since you rolled so well, I'll tell you, you'd really quickly know, and you're from here, these are Mulruk. There is a group of frog people very far from the very, very wet southern woods. And they are traveling, it looks like, in the same direction you're going, but they're ahead of you by a little bit. So you've like caught up to a small group of Mulruk.
Oof. Oh, that's no good. Which Svarm says to themselves.
Yeah, you can talk to yourself. You're two people, right?
Yeah. Actually, I was just thinking about that as you were giving that setup, where it's like they probably would converse back and forth a little bit. I mean, there's nothing indicating that they're different personalities, but I think that could be fun.
People have played it really different ways, which I think is part of the ambiguity of like the fun ambiguity of like, yeah, it's two people. I mean, you interpret that as you want. Like we don't, the system doesn't care. Like, I think there's a lot of different cool ideas, you could go with.
No, I love that. It's also like, different humans have wildly different personalities as well. So maybe there's some Morn folk who are more unified. Maybe there are some who are more disparate in terms of their functioning and things like that. Very cool. So Svarm's left mouth says, "This is not," and then the right mouth says, "a good sign."
Well, do you want to approach? I will tell you, even again, since you got above a 9, there are 8 Mulruk. You would guess they're adults. I mean, they don't look like little kids. So there's 8 adult Mulruk, hundreds of kilometers northwest of Mlurkla, the Mulruk meta nation. I mean, there's many nations within Mlurkla, but whatever they're doing, they've chosen to cross, the dangerous area where humans live, which is extremely dangerous to them. And then now they're in arguably equally or more dangerous area where the Sapphire Elves live.
Svarm, again, kind of alternating mouths as they're speaking, like the first half sentence, second half sentence. It's like, this is too much of a coincidence not to be connected. Although correlation does not mean causation, this is cause for alarm, and we must investigate. I think they're going to follow the tracks, because if it's heading the same direction towards kind of my target or my goal anyway, we're going to have them follow the tracks of the Mulruk to see where that's heading to, and to see if there is any kind of connection or correlation between these two events.
Great. Well, just so I understand, so you can go down into their encampment and be like, "Hey guys," or you could like, I guess,
gotcha.
around edges, or you could avoid it entirely and try to get the jump on them and say, "Okay, I'm gonna skirt around it quickly and go forward where we both might be going, but just like now I'm ahead of them." So, maybe something else, but those 3 jump out to me as possible.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think we're going to scout out their encampment. So keeping a pretty good distance, and trying to find some cover, whether it's lichen or rocks or anything like that. Trying to find some cover, maybe from a higher vantage point, scouting out their encampment just to see what they're up to, see where they're heading.
Got it. Yeah, maybe I was thinking you'd go into the pulp moss and around, but maybe it makes more sense to go around, like almost past them and back, and keep them, with some sort of rockier. Maybe there's even a proper boulder, and it's sort of like on the north side of them, and you kind of get behind that and you're looking. Give me a move.
Yeah, because the elf crypt's like mountainous, right? Did I understand that right?
Yeah. It's like high, dry mountains that separate sort of 2 different wet forest, systems on either side.
Yeah. So we'll do that. We'll try to kind of like skirt around and find kind of rocky covered terrain. So yeah, I'll give you a move check. I have a D8 for movement, and unfortunately, because I chose the bend Halberg, it's not the worst penalty for non-dodge moves, but it is -1. So we'll see how this goes.
And I will tell you, this is contested. They're going to roll an 8 for their will to perceive you. So you would win the tie because you're trying the action, you're initiating the action. So if you get the same number, you win. But if they get higher, they will detect you. And NPCs do not ever generally in my games burn grit. So you can always burn grit. They won't burn grit, right? They're just rolling a D8.
Cool. Okay. All right. So, okay. I rolled an 8 -1,
Great.
so I got a 7 total.
Well, then I'm going to roll, and they only would beat you if they roll an 8. And they rolled a 7. So you win the tie, right? You know what you're doing. You tried to do it, and they probably do hear something at some point, but there's little like moss critters, as soft as that would be. They still make noises of some kind. So they don't think anything of it, right? You make a squishy noise. There's other squishy noises. There are indeed 8. There are 7 what look like Mulrook warriors and 1 old Mulrook. You might even know the term Spark Seer. So someone who is trained in essentially sort of political organizing / maybe like military command / occupies a kind of priesthood position.
Gotcha.
In Mullerclaw. And the Hellraisers, the fighters, they don't look like ones who are, you might imagine from what you know of Mullerclaw. They have company made, it looks like, maybe provincially made here in Giju, but they have human and Waitan made stuff. So they're wearing like human armor that's like refitted, like cut down because they're a lot smaller and they have different shaped, bodies. They sort of hunch over on these large legs. And they're all sort of resting, they sort of sit by like standing on a stick, hunched over, and they're all kind of circled up with two of them turned outward as scouts who do not see you, although you're quite close now. And instead of around a fire, they're around a pool. So they've kind of dug a pit to just let the rain capture. And there's various things they would do with that. Maybe just sort of mixing up essentially like soups with a bunch of dried insects that they've brought in sort of some waterproof containers. So they're sort of eating a meal, and it looks like, from what you can tell, they're bored. They're speaking in one of the many non-mutually intelligible, as a joke, languages of Mullerclaw. So they are speaking a language that sounds like frogs croaking. You can hear it. I don't think, unless you want to make an argument otherwise, your character has no idea what they're talking about.
No, I don't think that this would be a language that they quite understand or could translate on the fly. I mean, they speak Spin, Mossish, Elf Machina, and Ghost Data, whatever Ghost Data is. But I think that this is going to be maybe a little too far off from any of the languages that they're fluent in to be able to kind of figure it out immediately.
Do you want to roll reason to try to pick up any words that, they might be borrowing from Mossish, which is basically, maybe has words borrowed from Spin. Like, there's might be a couple things strewn in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty, no pun intended, that's pretty reasonable, considering that they do have either or locally made goods. I mean, there might be some either trade or pillaging connection or something like that. They might have picked some stuff up. So yeah, all right, let's roll reason. I got a D10 for my reason score. I got a 6.
Great. The only things that really make sense to you, it seems like they're definitely bored. They're waiting. There might be different opinions in the group as to whether they should still be waiting. Seems like they've been waiting like a little while now, like longer than they thought. And you hear the leader at one point sort of calming the two main groups of fighters in terms of, we should stay, we should go, by just mentioning that they can trust the pink jelly. They basically are very pro like whatever the pink jelly said, and you can't really make out anything beyond that.
Yeah. Behind the boulder where they're hiding, Svarm does like a little yes. No, yeah, they don't trying to stay very quiet, but think to themselves like, so there is a connection. What could the co-director be doing back here?
Well, do you want to interact with these Mork, or do you want to skirt around them, or something else?
I mean, they're pretty aggressive towards the elves, towards the Sapphire elves, right?
I mean, there are people who have their own complicated thoughts, but generally the issue has been that the company has begun to move into territory that the Mulrooks feel they've lived on for 1,000 years. Why would you come take this forest or chop it down? So they often have issues with people from the company. The elves, I think everyone else on the planet is just really scared of, because if you show that you are sapient and have some sort of civilizational organization, they might just kill you. So they're kind of an unknown factor.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that you can get got. Okay, yeah. So I think Svarm is actually going to approach this encampment, kind of banking on the idea that they might, to these Molrocks, appear as more of a Sapphire elf than a co-operative or employee. They're wearing the Bend Halbrick. I don't think there's much else that kind of indicates that they are, with the co. So could be wrong. I leave that up to you. But from their standpoint, they're going to bet on being able to kind of come up and at least have some form of non-aggressive communication at the very least.
Great. Why don't you roll charm to try to approach these folks and be like, hey guys, what's up? In the maybe sort of spin and Mossish, and just or I guess Mossish, right? Is probably the language you speak.
Yeah. This is one of my worst scores, but we'll see what happens.
You can always burn 3, 6, or 9 grit to add +3, +6, or +9 any roll. True. I know you might be down a little grit later in the day. Haven't rested yet.
Yeah. Well, it's fine. Let's go. All right. So yeah, coming down the rock face that they were on and approaching the encampment. Svarm has both hands up like this, trying to show that they're non-aggressive. They are armed, but again, keeping their hands away from their weapons. And speaking in Mossish, says, I too seek the pink one.
What'd you get?
I rolled a 1.
They don't even let you finish the sentence before.
They
are
fine.
Attacking. Yeah,
that's fine. I'm not gonna burn grit. I want to get some combat in, so let's go. Let's see it.
Yeah, I think we'll probably do this combat, and then we'll wrap it up here. And then depending on what you learn, it'll be a convenient stopping place either way, is my guess, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So you're gonna roll movement. So we use movement.
Sad egg.
Oh no, the sad egg. It's spilt. It's a spilt egg. Yeah, you roll movement to initiate combat. So they are initiating combat. So if you want to join in and not just not defend yourself and presumably get killed, then you would also roll movement to determine who acts first.
Yeah, let's do it.
They are very fast.
I probably am not as fast. So I scored 6 and then -1 because of my armor. So I'm at a 5 for my roll.
Got it. So they are going to act first. And I think they're not all attacking at once. I think probably 4 of them are attacking. The others were either listening or kind of letting their comrades handle it.
Sure.
So I'm going to say that they are trying to essentially 2 of them are jumping at you with swords, and they're very fast. They have swords of flaked stone that are fairly sharp, and maybe one of them has a sword of steel from the company, and the other two are trying to basically jump and put a huge net around you that has very heavy weights that looks like it's made of sort of metal thread. So it's pretty serious. So I'm going to roll the sword attacks. You have to dodge a 6 and a 5. So you can dodge any number of times. Again, you can burn grit to dodge, or else you take the damage, right?
Okay. All right. So you do burn grit in order to dodge, and that would be to roll to dodge.
Yeah, so you roll movement to dodge. First, you have to dodge a 6. So you'd have to get a 7 or higher because they initiated the action. So a tie would go to them.
All right, so that would be a 5 for the first one.
So that is the first Mulric Hellraiser trying to stabs you for 3 damage before damage reduction. So that made me
damage reduction. Yeah, I have a DR of 3 because of my Halberg, so that knocks away any potential damage there. No
so
stabbing.
That's the guy with sort of a stone sword that's very broad, like a stone gladius, and it just can't get through the heavy, military grade plastic armor you have on, and so it's weirdly just like scored, the side of your suit.
Nice.
So the next attack was a 5. So you have to get a 6 or better, or else the steel sword is coming inside your suit.
Okay. I rolled a 2.
Okay. And so that one I'm going to say is 7 damage before damage reduction.
Okay. So I would take 4 points of damage there.
Okay. So you do get cut, maybe not as deeply as you would have if you weren't wearing this heavy, military plastic armor that's meant to be really, shock absorbent and turn away sort of blades and bullets and whatever. But you do get cut. It does shatter in one place. There's blood, or the equivalent of blood, I guess, blue goo of nanites and like
nanite juice.
Yeah, some sort of like fluid that they're suspended in. And it doesn't feel great. The other two with the net are going to attack, and they're just really trying to get you to stop moving. So that is going to be an 11 for the first one. Cool. So that may not be dodgeable. I don't know if you're going to try to dodge that.
I will try to dodge that. If I can roll high enough and then burn some extra grit, would that suffice to dodge?
Yeah, you need ultimately a 12 or higher. So that's
okay.
Entirely possible, but might involve burning grit. Yeah.
Let's give it a shot. Oh God, I rolled a 2. I don't want to burn 10 grit, so I guess the net encloses around us.
Great, and then I'm not. So I think you are netted, and you couldn't burn enough grit because you can only burn 9, so you would
it would have happened anyway.
So that was a hard one. They seem like seasoned, veteran fighters. While a couple of them are real hotheads who earnestly were probably just trying to kill you. Most of them want to put you in a net, maybe kick you pretty hard, but basically just put you in a net and tie you up and not harm you, but talk to you. But they wanted to protect themselves, and they seem very reverent of the Sparkseer. So they were specifically trying to make sure you didn't assassinate their priest. You are in a net. I think realistically we should probably stop here. But maybe
seems like a good cliffhanger.
Yeah, unless you want to do real quick, what you would say as the Sparkseer in Broken Mossish is, ask, who sent you, right? Why are you here spying on us?
Svarm with all 4 eyes, both heads turned towards the Sparkseer as independently as possible, and says, I am a comrade of the Pink One. I too search for them. Will you help me? And then credits.
All right. I think if you want, you can roll will to resist other.
Okay, yeah, sure.
I think the Sparkseer comes over, and their frog-like hand is sort of placed on maybe one on each of your heads inside the net, and they close their eyes, and you feel weird.
All right. Roll will. 14.
Oh, okay. Well, it's up to you. They are clearly trying to read your thoughts to see if what you're saying is true or if you are lying. So I will give you the option. You can let them read your thoughts, or you can, resist that, since you rolled a 14, which is crazy.
Yeah, I want them to trust me, but I also don't want them to know the full extent of my involvement. So we're gonna resist the mind probing.
Okay, I think then their face looks, sags with kind of consternation, and they hop back and fold they're sort of, they don't have like full robes, but they have like big ropey pieces that sort of function like robes in their society of sort of like tubing, and they fold that around them and look at you, open their eyes a little, and say a bunch of things in some Muller-Klein language, and I think at that point, the others maybe like put a tarp over you as well, so you can't see anything. And that is where I think we will end credits. So you have been captured by a group of Mulric fighters, well beyond where you would expect to encounter them, and in the foothills of Yizich Sichuan, the elf crypt, where presumably your boss's boss is either hiding or in trouble, or you have no idea, lost. So if you want to resume, we can always resume this. But Chris, thank you so much for going through the first steps of this solo venture. It's always super fun to play games.
Yeah, that was fantastic. That was really fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for running it.
Well, thanks. I mean, I'd love to ask about like what you thought, and again, I just love to find out what happens, but I think we should call it there. And yeah, we'll be back. And I think next time we do an actual play, we'll actually switch and play a little Danse Macabre, and then we'll come back and talk about some of the aspects of both games, and we'll play some other games too at some point. So
yeah. I mean, I would love to continue this. This super fun. But yeah, next time like you said, next time we'll do a little bit of Danse Macabre. I have a quest that I'm brewing up for you. I think it'll be nice, straightforward kind of point crawl system thing. And then next week when we're back streaming, we're going to be talking to friend of the stream, friend of the cast, Chris Perry Wolf, who is the author of Offworlders, which is a really fun rules light, powered by the apocalypse space romp kind of. I like to think of it as your losers in space, but it's more than that. Kind of similar to Stillfleet. You're taking jobs, taking on jobs. I think there's some very nice crossover there. And Chris is also working on a game called Night Tripper, which, as I understand, is kind of an ode to classic Traveler system. So we'll have him on next week. Very excited to talk to him.
And then we'll also then play Danse Macabre, and then have on Ethan Gould, who works with me on Stillfleet, and we're co-designing a fantasy game right now that's very much Ethan's baby. So we'll talk about probably he's an illustrator as well, so thinking y'all can talk about illustration, and we can talk about our new game, and we can talk about some of the work of working together on a project where it's to some degree I brought a book to my friend who's an artist, but obviously now it's really grown, and it's really a collaborative effort. So I look forward to meeting Chris, and having Ethan on, and hopefully if people are liking Why We Roll, then we'll just keep doing it and just keep playing games and inviting other designers. So thanks a lot, Chris. We will resume. I as long as you have Svarm's grit and health noted, I think otherwise we're good to pick that up. So we'll schedule that and get back to their misadventures in the foothills of the elf crypts.
Sounds good.
All right. This is Why We Roll, and we'll see y'all next time.
All right. Thanks, Wythe. Thanks, everybody, for watching.